Nobody tells you that first contact might happen because you spilled coffee on a transmission console. The hot liquid, synthetic blend, station grade, terrible, had arced beautifully through the low-gravity section of research platform Helix 9 before finding the one panel that controlled our deep space communication array. Sparks erupted, alarms sang their digital panic, and somewhere in the black between stars, my garbled distress signal apparently sounded enough like a formal greeting that the Nocturne Empire decided to respond. I was still swearing and grabbing fire suppressant when Lieutenant Hayes burst through the door, her gray hair escaping its usual tight bun. "What did you do, Reeves?" "Contacted an alien civilization," I offered, watching error messages cascade across every screen like a very technical waterfall of my failures. She stared at me, then at the console, then back at me with an expression that somehow combined disbelief, resignation, and the exhausted patience of someone who'd been stationed too long at humanity's loneliest outpost. "You're joking. The computer says we've received coordinates and a diplomatic acceptance code." I pointed at the one screen still functioning. "From the Nocturne Empire, which according to our databases is vampires," Hayes finished flatly. "Space vampires. You invited space vampires to our research station by dumping coffee into sensitive military equipment. They prefer hemophagic nobility, according to the cultural brief." I was already pulling up files, my hands shaking slightly. Not from fear, from excitement. 3 years studying dead languages from civilizations that had gone silent centuries ago, and now something living was actually talking back. And technically, I didn't invite them. I just accidentally said hello, very loudly, across several star systems. Hayes pressed both palms against her temples. "The nearest military support is 6 weeks away." "Yes, but think about it. This is incredible. The Nocturne Empire has refused all contact for 200 years. They're a complete mystery. Some xenologists think they're just legends, ghost stories traders made up to explain missing colony ships. And now they're coming here because you can't drink coffee like a normal person." She exhaled slowly. "When?" I checked the timestamp on the transmission, felt my stomach drop. "Approximately 17 hours ago, which means given their reported engine capabilities and accounting for dimensional drift through the Caecilian corridor." The station shuddered, not violently, but with a distinctive magnetic pulse that meant something large had just matched our velocity. Through the reinforced window, space twisted like dark water, and then a ship emerged. It didn't look like the vessels in our tactical databases. Those were all sharp angles and aggressive geometry, designed to intimidate. This was different, smooth as polished obsidian, curved like something grown rather than built, and absolutely massive. Lights flickered across its surface in patterns that almost looked like breathing. "Oh," Hayes said very quietly. "Oh, that's not good." "That's magnificent," I breathed. "Look at the hull design. Those aren't just lights. Those are bioluminescent communication nodes. They're talking to each other. The ship is alive, or at least partially organic." "It means," Hayes said, "that we're about to have very powerful visitors, and our only diplomat is the idiot who invited them by accident." She straightened her uniform with sharp movements. "Get cleaned up. Find something that looks official. Try not to cause an interstellar incident." The docking process took an hour. Their ships seemed to be scanning us, though our sensors couldn't determine what kind of scan. Hayes insisted on meeting them at the airlock. I insisted on coming with her. We compromised by both going, heavily armed security flanking us. Everyone pretending we weren't terrified. The airlock cycled. Pressure equalized. The door opened with a hiss that sounded far too much like a sigh. They came through like figures from a dream. Tall, elegant, wrapped in dark fabric that seemed to shift in ways that had nothing to do with air currents. 4 of them, moving with synchronized grace. But it was the one in front who made me forget how to breathe properly. She wore a hood that shadowed her face. And even in the harsh utility lighting of our station, she seemed to carry darkness with her, like a personal atmosphere. When she moved, I caught glimpses of markings beneath the hood, lines that glowed faintly, tracing patterns across skin that was almost but not quite human pale. "I am Velasira," she said, and her voice had layers to it, harmonics that shouldn't have been possible from a single throat. "Queen of the Nocturne Empire, keeper of the long dark, guardian of the crimson threshold." She paused, tilted her hooded head slightly. Did you truly contact us by accident? Hayes shot me a look that promised future consequences. I stepped forward. Yes, I'm Reeves, Dr. Jamie Reeves. I spilled coffee on the communications console. I'm very sorry. Also, welcome to Research Platform Helix 9, and I have so many questions about your language structure. Silence, the kind that stretches. Then from beneath the hood, I heard something impossible. She laughed, not sinister or cruel, but genuine amusement, surprised and light. You summoned the Nocturne Empire with coffee? Very bad coffee, I confirmed. Station grade. It's terrible. Would you like some? The conference room wasn't designed for royalty. It was designed for efficiency, which meant uncomfortable chairs, flickering fluorescent panels that hummed like dying insects, and a table that had seen better decades. Queen Velicera stood at the window instead, her back to us, hood still raised. Her 3 attendants had positioned themselves at equal points around the room's perimeter, like very elegant security sensors. Hayes had left me alone with them. Actually alone. Her exact words had been, "You broke it, you fix it," before disappearing to update Earth Command on our situation, which meant I was now humanity's sole representative in what could either be historic diplomacy or a spectacular prelude to my own death. So, I said, because silence felt worse than potential stupidity, the coffee offer still stands. We also have nutrition paste in 17 flavors, though I'm legally required to tell you that 3 of them are actually the same flavor with different food coloring. One of the attendants made a sound. It might have been a cough. It might have been suppressed laughter. Hard to tell when everyone kept their hoods up like we were having a very formal Halloween party in space. Velicera turned slightly. The movement was unnaturally smooth, like watching water flow uphill. Your station has been monitoring our border space for 3 years, Dr. Reeves. Your energy signatures were quite obvious. Why pretend the contact was accidental? My mouth went dry. Because it actually was accidental. We weren't monitoring you specifically. We're a research platform. We study dead signals from extinct civilizations. You've been silent for 2 centuries. Everyone assumed you were either gone or not interested in talking. We had no idea our proximity sensors even reached your territory until, well, the coffee incident. You study the dead, she said. It wasn't a question. Languages, mostly. Cultural transmissions. Last messages. That sort of thing. I pulled up my tablet showing her the waveform analysis I'd been working on before my beverage betrayed me. This is from a civilization that went silent 400 years ago. They were trying to say something important, but the signal degraded. I've been trying to reconstruct it for 8 months. She moved closer, fast. One moment she was across the room, the next she was beside me, and I definitely didn't see the transition. Her hood shifted as she studied the screen, and I caught a glimpse of her profile, sharp, elegant, and marked with those glowing lines that branched like luminescent rivers across her cheek. The patterns pulsed gently, synchronized with something. Her heartbeat, maybe. This is Caecilian script, she said. Very old. They weren't saying something important. They were singing. Singing? A death song. For their son. Her finger traced the waveform without touching the screen. It translates roughly to "We fade as all light fades, grateful for the burning." You've been treating it as a distress call. I stared at the data I'd been parsing for months. She was right. The mathematical patterns that I'd interpreted as urgent repetition were actually melodic structure. How do you know Caecilian? We knew them, before they faded. She pulled back, and the hood fell deeper over her face again. We know many dead languages, Dr. Reeves. When you live as long as we do, everything becomes a dead language eventually. How long do you live? Long enough to watch stars change color. Long enough to forget what it felt like to be young. She moved back to the window. Your Hayes doesn't trust us. She's correct not to. Do you know what your people call us? Vampires. But that's just because of the... I gestured vaguely at my own neck. The hemophagy, yes. We require iron-rich compounds from living sources to survive. Your species produces excellent iron-rich compounds, which makes you either a resource or a temptation, depending on one's level of self-control. She said it matter-of-factly, like discussing weather. I assume your security teams have been briefed to carry resonance weapons? Sonic disruptors, actually. They were on sale. That sound again from one of the attendants. Definitely suppressed laughter this time. You're taking this quite well, Velasira observed. Most humans panic when they realize we're apex predators and they're potentially prey. I'm terrified, I admitted. But I'm also fascinated. Your vocal harmonics alone suggest a completely different evolution of communication structures. And you just solved a puzzle I've been working on for months in about 15 seconds. So my scientific curiosity is currently overriding my survival instincts, which my ex-girlfriend always said was my most annoying quality. You had a girlfriend? Had being the operative word. She got tired of me prioritizing dead alien languages over date night. In my defense, the dead aliens never complained about my scheduling. I pulled up another file. Since you're here and apparently fluent in extinct tongues, can I show you something else? There's this signal from the Vorchek cluster that I think might be mathematical poetry, but I can't figure out the base counting system they used. Velasira tilted her head. The gesture reminded me of a bird studying something unexpected. You're asking me for academic assistance. You're literally the most qualified xenolinguist who's ever been on this station. Possibly the most qualified in the galaxy, given the whole living long enough to meet civilizations before they died thing. It would be criminal not to ask. I paused. Also, I'm hoping that if I'm useful to you, you'll be less likely to eat me. We don't eat people, Dr. Reeves. We're not animals. Right. Sorry, less likely to drink me? That's still eating, technically. I'm trying here. She laughed again. Properly this time, not hidden or suppressed. The sound had those same harmonics as her speaking voice. Layered and strange and somehow warm. Show me your Vorchek signal. If I help you solve it, will you explain why your coffee was terrible enough to damage military equipment? Deal. Though I warn you, the coffee explanation is less interesting than you'd hope. It mostly involves budget cuts and questionable supply chains. 3 hours later, we'd solved the Vorchek signal. Turned out they counted in base 7 because they had 7 moons and were very literal thinkers. And I'd somehow ended up teaching an immortal vampire queen how to use our catastrophically outdated database system. No, you have to hit enter twice. I don't know why twice. The programmer who designed this retired before I was born, and apparently took all logic with him. I leaned over her shoulder, pointing at the screen. She'd pushed her hood back at some point, focused on the work, and I was trying very hard not to stare at the bioluminescent patterns that traced across her temples and down her neck. They pulsed faster when she was concentrating. There, see? Now it'll cross-reference with the linguistic database. This system is older than some of my grandnieces, Velasira said. How does your species accomplish anything with technology this primitive? Stubbornness, mostly. Also coffee, though we've established I'm bad at that. I pulled up another file. Wait until you see our data storage solution. We're still using physical backup drives that require manual rotation every 72 hours. Manual rotation. Hayes does it. She's very responsible, unlike some people. I glanced at one of the attendants, who'd been standing motionless for 3 hours. Do they need to sit? Are they okay? I feel bad that we only have 4 chairs. They're fine. They're guards, not guests. They're still people. Or, well, I assume. I don't actually know your species' proper terminology. People? Beings? Individuals? I grabbed 2 chairs from the corner. Here, please sit. This is making me anxious. The guards looked at their queen. She made a small gesture. They sat, moving with synchronized precision that suggested either telepathy or really good training. One of them nodded at me. I nodded back. It felt like progress. You're very strange for a human, Velasira said. I get that a lot. Usually right before I get reassigned to remote research platforms in the middle of nowhere. I brought up the next signal in my queue, a fragmented transmission from somewhere in the outer reaches. Oh, this one's interesting. It's been repeating for 60 years, but the content changes slightly each cycle. Like it's evolving, or degrading. I can't tell which. She studied it, and her luminescent marks flickered in a pattern I was starting to recognize as curiosity. Play it. I triggered the audio reconstruction. The sound that filled the room was haunting, musical and mathematical at once, rising and falling in waves that felt almost like breathing. One of the guards shifted uncomfortably. The other reached for a weapon that wasn't there. Stop, Velasira said quietly. Stop the playback. I stopped it. What's wrong? That's not a dead language. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. That's a distress call, an active one, from the Pale Reaches. The Pale Reaches are empty space. Nothing's lived there for 80 years, since the burning quartz fell. Her marks were pulsing rapidly now, bright enough to cast shadows. Someone survived. Someone's been calling for help for 60 years, and your species has been cataloging it as archaeological data. The weight of that hit me like physical force. 60 years. 60 years of someone screaming into the void while we filed their screams under interesting cultural artifacts. Can you translate it? It's ancient nocturne dialect. Pre-empire, it says... She stopped, her expression shifting to something I couldn't read. It says, "The garden is dying, the children are alone. Please remember us." Silence filled the room, the kind that has weight. "We have to tell someone," I said. "We have to send help." "Dr. Reeves, the Pale Reaches are 40 light years from here, through unstable space. Nothing human-made could survive the journey. And even our ships would take," she calculated, 3 months minimum. "So we do nothing? Let them keep broadcasting while we sit here solving linguistic puzzles?" "I didn't say that." She turned to her guards, speaking in that layered harmonic language that my translator couldn't parse. They responded, rapid and urgent. She switched back to English. "We'll investigate. My ship can make the journey, but I need detailed coordinates, everything your database has on spatial anomalies in that region, and someone who understands your species' stellar cartography." "I understand stellar cartography. You're volunteering to board a nocturne vessel and travel into dead space to answer a distress call that might be a trap? You think it's a trap? I think 60 years is a long time to wait for rescue. Long enough for hope to turn into other things. Darker things." Her eyes met mine, and they were indeed crimson, bright and strange and completely focused. "I think anyone who survived the burning quartz learned very effective ways to hurt people. And I think bringing a human into that situation is dangerous for everyone involved." "But you're going anyway." "I have to. Those are my people's words. That's my responsibility. Then it's mine too. I'm the one who cataloged it as dead. I'm the one who didn't realize someone was screaming. I saved all the relevant files to a portable drive. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't break our database system. You still haven't figured out the double enter thing." One of the guards made that almost laugh sound again. Velasera looked at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she smiled and I saw her teeth. Sharp, yes, but the smile itself was warm. "You're either very brave or very stupid, Dr. Reeves." My ex-girlfriend said both, usually in the same sentence. I handed her the data drive. "When do we leave?" "As soon as you inform Hayes that you're departing on a potentially suicidal rescue mission with aliens your species barely trusts." "Right. That conversation will go well. I'll come with you. Moral support." "You're the reason the conversation will go badly." "Exactly. Moral support for me." She gestured toward the door. "After you, Dr. Reeves." Hayes listened to my explanation with the expression of someone watching a slow-motion shuttle crash. When I finished, she put both hands flat on her desk and counted backward from 10 in 3 different languages. I recognized 2 of them. The third sounded Martian, which meant she was really upset. "Let me clarify," she said with dangerous calm. "You want to leave the station, board an alien vessel, travel through uncharted space to answer a distress call that's been active since before you were born, accompanied by a species we know almost nothing about except that they drink blood and could probably kill everyone on this platform before breakfast. Technically, hemophages require iron compounds, not specifically blood," I offered, "and it would be more of a brunch timeline, given the preparation involved." Velasera, standing beside me in Hayes' cramped office, made a sound that might have been amusement. Hayes glared at her, then at me, then back at her. "This isn't funny, Reeves." "I know. That's why I'm joking. If I stop joking, I'll remember that I'm terrified and volunteering anyway." I pulled up the signal analysis on Hayes' console. "Someone's alive out there. Someone's been calling for 60 years. We can't just ignore it." "Yes, we can. That's exactly what we can do. We're a research station, not a rescue operation. We have 12 people, outdated weapons, and a communications array held together with literal coffee stains." Hayes stood, pacing the narrow space between her desk and the wall. "Earth Command won't authorize this. They'll want to send a proper military escort, which will take months to organize. By which time whoever's broadcasting might be dead, Velasira said. Her voice had lost its earlier warmth. Lieutenant Hayes, I understand your caution, but those are my people calling. I cannot ignore them, and your Dr. Reeves has information I need to navigate safely. I'm asking permission, not because I require it legally, but because I respect your authority here. Hayes stopped pacing. You're asking permission to take one of my researchers into potentially hostile territory. Yes, and if I say no, then I take my ship and go alone, without proper coordinates, and probably die in an unstable spatial rift before I reach the Pale Reaches. Which would be unfortunate, because I was starting to enjoy your station's terrible coffee. Velasira tilted her head. Also, Dr. Reeves would feel guilty forever, and based on the last 3 hours, guilt makes them extremely talkative. You'd have to deal with that. I'm right here, I protested. I know. You're contributing to my point. Hayes sat down again, rubbing her temples. If you die out there, Earth Command will blame me. If you start an intergalactic incident, they'll blame me. If you successfully rescue survivors and it turns into a political nightmare, they'll definitely blame me. So you're saying yes? I asked hopefully. I'm saying I wanted in writing that this was Reeves's idea, signed by both of you, with timestamps and video evidence. She pulled up a formal documentation template. I want a communication check-in every 12 hours. I want full sensor logs. And I want you back here in one piece within 3 weeks, or I'm reporting you as killed in action and claiming your quarters for storage space. You can't claim my quarters. Watch me. I've been eyeing that shelf space for months. She pushed the documentation across the desk. Sign, both of you. And Reeves, if you get yourself eaten. Drunk, Velasira corrected. Eating implies consumption of solid matter. If you get yourself drunk by aliens, I'm telling your mother it was your fault. That's cruel and unusual punishment. I signed the form. My mother still hasn't forgiven me for the incident with the Martian ambassador. You told the Martian ambassador his ceremonial robes looked like expensive curtains. They did look like expensive curtains. Very nice curtains. It was a compliment. Velasira signed below my signature, her handwriting flowing in curves that didn't match any human script. I promise to return Dr. Reeves intact, Lieutenant Hayes. Mostly intact. At least 70% intact. That's not reassuring. It wasn't meant to be, but I am serious about the rescue mission. Velasira's marks pulsed slowly, steady as a heartbeat. Those people have been alone for 60 years. I need to try. Hayes looked at her for a long moment. You really care about them, even though you don't know who they are. They spoke in old dialect, pre-empire. That means they're from before the wars, before we became what we are now. They might be the last connection to who we were. She paused. Wouldn't you travel into danger for that? I traveled into danger for a pension and dental coverage, Hayes said dryly. But yes, I understand. She stood extending her hand. Bring them back. Bring yourself back. And for the love of all that's holy, bring Reeves back before they accidentally start another diplomatic incident. Velasira shook her hand. The gesture looked awkward on both of them, like neither species had quite figured out the mechanics of formal greeting. I'll do my best, though I make no promises about the diplomatic incidents. Your Dr. Reeves seems to generate them naturally. It's a gift, I said. It's a curse, Hayes corrected. She turned to me. Pack light. Bring your translation equipment. Don't touch anything that looks important on their ship. And Reeves? Yes? Try not to die. The paperwork would be excessive. I'll add it to my list of motivations. Right below scientific curiosity and crushing guilt about the distress signal. Perfect. Now get out of my office before I change my mind. We left. Velasira's guards fell into step behind us as we walked toward the docking bay. The station felt different now, smaller somehow, like I was seeing it from outside already. In 18 hours, I'd be on an alien ship, traveling through space that might kill us, looking for people who might not want to be found. Are you scared? Velasira asked quietly. Absolutely terrified. You? Yes, but I'm glad I won't be alone. We reached the airlock. Her ship waited beyond it, dark and alive and strange. I took a breath. Let's go save some people. The Nocturne ship interior was nothing like I'd expected. Where I'd imagined cold metal and clinical efficiency, there were curved walls that seemed to breathe. bioluminescent panels that shifted colors based on who stood near them, and what I could only describe as a garden growing along the ceiling. Actual plants reaching down like they'd forgotten which way gravity worked. "It's alive," I said, touching a wall that felt warm under my palm. "Partially. We grow our ships over decades. They become part of us." Velasira moved through the corridors with easy familiarity, her guards dispersing to other sections. "Your quarters are here. We'll reach the Pale Reaches in 2 days if the dimensional currents cooperate." The room she showed me was small but comfortable, with a window that displayed space in ways I'd never seen. Stars didn't just shine, they sang, visible wavelengths shifting into audible frequencies. I stood there, watching colors become sound, and felt very far from home. "It's beautiful," I said. "It's lonely." Velasira stood beside me at the window. She'd lowered her hood completely now, and I could see the full pattern of her marks. They traced from her temples down her neck, disappearing beneath her collar, pulsing in steady rhythm. Her ears rose to elegant points through her dark hair. Space is always lonely. That's why the distress call matters. Someone refused to let the silence win. "You're scared we'll find them dead." "I'm scared we'll find them alive and wrong, changed by 60 years of isolation into something that can't be saved." She turned away from the window. "Get some rest, Dr. Reeves. Tomorrow I'll show you our navigation systems. They'll amuse you. We steer partially by singing to the ship." "You're joking." "I'm not. The ship responds to harmonic frequencies. It's quite literal." She smiled. "Your species uses mathematics. We use music. Both work, which says something interesting about the universe, though I'm not sure what." The next 2 days passed in a blur of alien technology, translation work, and increasingly elaborate meals that Velasira's crew prepared. They seemed determined to prove that nocturne cuisine was sophisticated, which it was, though I drew the line at the dish that was still moving. "It's considered a delicacy," one of the guards explained. His name was Therex, and he'd started teaching me basic nocturne phrases during meals. "It's considered traumatic for humans," I countered. "Our food doesn't usually try to escape the plate." Velasira laughed, that layered harmonic sound that I'd grown to recognize as genuine, rather than polite. She'd been different since we left the station, more relaxed, less formal. The Queen became just Velasira, someone who made terrible puns about stellar mechanics and got excited about linguistic puzzles. On the second night, I found her on the observation deck, staring at the approaching coordinates. The Pale Reaches were visible now, a region of space where stars seemed dimmer, like someone had turned down the universe's brightness. "Can't sleep?" I asked. "Don't need as much sleep as humans. One of our evolutionary advantages, along with the unfortunate dietary requirements." She gestured to the space beside her. I sat. "I've been thinking about what we'll find. Running scenarios. And, best case, survivors who've maintained hope and sanity. Worst case, something that used to be people and isn't anymore. Middle case, bodies and recordings and closure." "Which do you hope for?" "Middle case," she admitted. "Hope is dangerous. Hope makes you vulnerable. But you've taught me something, Dr. Reeves. That coffee is a weapon when mishandled. That vulnerability isn't weakness. You volunteered for this mission knowing you might die. That's not logical. It's not strategically sound. But it's brave, and I'd forgotten that bravery requires fear first." Her marks pulsed brighter. "I've spent 2 centuries being careful, being the perfect queen, hiding behind protocol and power. You spilled coffee and accidentally created the first real contact my people have had in generations. Sometimes chaos accomplishes what planning can't." "Are you saying I'm inspiring or just lucky?" "Both. Definitely both." We reached the source of the signal 6 hours later. It came from a small station orbiting a dying red dwarf, barely visible against the dark. The structure was ancient, patchwork, clearly jury-rigged to survive far longer than intended. And it was broadcasting. Velasira opened a channel, spoke in that old dialect, her voice careful and clear. "This is Queen Velasira of the Nocturne Empire. We received your signal. We're here to help." Static. Then after an eternity, "You came. After 60 years, someone finally came." The voice was old, tired, but unmistakably alive. We found 3 survivors, 2 adults and one who'd been born in isolation, never seeing another of their kind beyond their parents. They cried when we brought them aboard. Real tears, which I learned nocturne people did rarely, saving them for moments that shattered carefully built composure. The eldest, named Kareth, explained between sobs. The burning quartz had fallen quickly, violently. They'd escaped to an old research station, kept broadcasting, kept hoping. 60 years of hoping. We thought everyone had forgotten us, she said. We thought the empire had ended. The empire endured, Velasira said gently. And you will too. Welcome home. We made the journey back in 4 days. The survivors needed time to adjust, to believe rescue was real. I spent hours with them, recording their stories, their language, the old dialect preserving grammatical structures we thought lost forever. They taught me songs from before the wars. I taught them about modern humanity, about species they'd never met. When we docked at Helix 9, Hayes was waiting with what looked like the entire station crew. She took one look at the survivors, at Velasira, at me still in one piece, and nodded once. Good work, Reeves. You didn't die. Disappointed? Relieved? The paperwork would have been terrible. She turned to Velasira. Queen Velasira, on behalf of humanity in this station, thank you. Thank Dr. Reeves and Terrible Coffee. Without both, we wouldn't be here. Velasira extended her hand again, that awkward human gesture. Hayes shook it. Progress. Later, as her ship prepared to depart, the survivors settled, diplomatic channels opened, history made. Velasira found me in the observation deck. You were right, she said without preamble. About what? About not giving up on signals we don't understand. About taking risks for people we've never met. About... She hesitated. Her marks pulsed rapidly. Earlier, when we first met, I was hiding. I've hidden for 2 centuries because I'm afraid people will see my marks, my face, as something frightening, as monstrous. But you looked at me like I was just another person worth knowing. You are. Also, your bioluminescence is scientifically fascinating, but that's beside the point. She laughed, pulled her hood back fully, standing in the starlight without hiding. You told me once that I was beautiful. You said it casually, like it was obvious. No one has said that to me in a very long time. Then everyone else is an idiot. You're brilliant, brave, and yes, beautiful. Also occasionally terrifying, but that's part of the appeal. She stepped closer. Her marks glowed steady and bright, reflecting in the glass. The galaxy feels smaller now, less lonely. Good, because I have about 700 more signals to analyze, and I could use a consulting xenolinguist who knows ancient dialects and doesn't mind my coffee disasters. Is this you asking me to visit again? This is me asking you to visit regularly. Maybe stay for dinner. Teach me more about harmonic navigation. Let me study your language structures. The scientific collaboration would be unprecedented. Just scientific? Well, I said carefully, science first, but I'm open to interdisciplinary research. She smiled, full and genuine, no longer hiding her sharp teeth or her strange beauty. Then I accept. For science. For science, I agreed. Outside, stars sang their ancient songs. Inside, something new began, tentative, strange, and full of possibility. I'd started this journey by accidentally contacting an alien empire. I was ending it having maybe, possibly, started something that felt like friendship. Maybe more. The universe was vast and dark and lonely, but not as lonely as before, and that felt like enough.